Am I the antagonist for refusing to drive my daughter anywhere except work and school anymore? To put this simply, I have a daughter, 19, in college. She works a part-time job and helps out a small amount with the bills, about $100, every 2 weeks. The issue is she doesn't have a license. This means I have to drive her around since our town doesn't really have much public transportation. She has her permit, and I have tried to get her to learn to drive, but she won't drive. I've only gotten her behind the wheel of a car once. We only made it 10 minutes, after which she was honked at by another car after going into the other lane slightly. She then pulled over and just cried. I had to drive us home that day. Until now, I've driven her wherever she wants to go. I'm tired of it. I'd rather spend my weekends after a hard week of work at home relaxing, not driving her to 5 different places. So a few days ago, I told her I'm no longer driving her around. I'll still drive her to school and work, of course, but other than that, I'm done, and if she wants to go other places to let me know, and we can start teaching her to drive again. I expected her to get upset, but she didn't. She just went quiet and went to her room. She hasn't said a word to me since either. This has me thinking I may have been too harsh on her and shouldn't have done this. At the same time though, I feel like this is the only way that will get her to learn to drive. Am I the a-hole for this? You've been extremely accommodating, but it may be time for her to get back on the horse. If she is too anxious to drive safely, professional driving lessons with a dual control vehicle could help her regain confidence. She should evaluate the problem, resolve it, and come up with alternatives. Good luck. Am I the antagonist for firing and kicking out my Mo over a cat? I, 37 years old female, was adopted by my parents, 67 years old female and 68 years old male, at age 5, after years of struggling to conceive and many miscarriages. My brother Adam came along when I was 8. Adam was my parents' miracle baby that they had given up on ever having. Mom's pregnancy was super difficult and high risk, but she pushed through it for the chance to finally have a biological child. Sadly, 3 years ago, we lost my brother in an accident, at 26 years old. It was sudden, unexpected, and absolutely destroyed me and my family. During our time of grief, his fiancée Diana, 30 years old female, was a lifeline for us. She was grieving as well, but she helped us through those first terrible, unbearable several months, and I've struggled to find ways to repay her kindness and care ever since. We became friends when she started dating my brother over 10 years ago, and when I became engaged, it seemed only natural and obvious that I would choose her as my maid of honor. When I asked her to be my maid of honor a year ago, she said yes. 4 months later, in the midst of planning, she came to me and said she needed a place to stay for a while. I said, come on and make yourself at home. In the weeks before moving in, she asked about my cat Polly, 9 years old male, wanting to know if somebody could keep him, as she has a mild cat allergy. I said I couldn't, and she said she'd take Benadryl and deal with it. I thought that was it, but 2 weeks before Diana moved in, Polly disappeared. Diana helped me put up posters and check shelters, but we had no luck. Well, come to find out, Diana is the reason Polly was missing. She had used her key to my home to take him, but let me believe he slipped out, and had a friend keep him for the 4 months that she ended up living in my home. I found this all out almost 2 weeks ago and I pitched an absolute fit, threw her stuff out of my house before she could properly fully move out, kicked her out of my wedding, and told her in no uncertain terms to stay away from me for a while. I blocked her after the 3rd apology text because I was sick of seeing her name on my phone, then blocked her across all social medias. She even showed up at my work the other day and I stayed in the back until she finally left. My parents, who adore her as an extension of my brother, want me to make up with her and let her stay in the wedding, but I don't see us coming close to even being civil before my wedding date. Adam helped me pick out Polly, and he's one of the few things I have left that connects me to my brother. I don't know what I'm going to do about the open maid of honor spot or anything yet, but I'm wondering if maybe I did go overboard. I don't think I did, but I could use some outside perspective. Am I the asshole? Not the antagonist at all. Seriously, she expected you to provide housing and then went behind your back to remove your cat. That is not what a friend would do. It's completely understandable that you kicked her out and removed her from your wedding. Your parents can choose to continue contact with her, but you've made your decision, and that's what matters. What she did was disgraceful, and you are completely justified in cutting her out of your life. Wishing you many years of marital bliss with your precious cat, Polly. Am I the antagonist for not supporting my sister so she can adopt my brother's son? When my brother, age 35, Jake went to jail for a short stint, I, age 30, was on paper the best candidate to take care of his son, age 7, John. The issue was that I did not have the qualities needed to be a good parent. The situation became more complicated as, even if I did, my brother's son, to put it lightly, was a very difficult child. I eventually caved in to family pressure and manipulation. However, I did not agree to take in John unconditionally. I made it clear that I could not do this alone and extracted promises of support from many relatives. In hindsight, I was incredibly naive. As soon as the ink was dry, my relatives abandoned me. It was by far the most miserable experience of my life. I was in no way equipped to deal with a child, much less one with as many issues as John. All of my pleas for help were at best ignored. At worst, I was blamed, shamed. While I'd like to believe that I didn't take my resentment regret out on John, I most certainly did not support his emotional needs. At best, I was a distant caretaker. And when Jake got out of jail, I couldn't hand John back to my brother fast enough. Yes, I knew that my brother a terrible parent, but so was I, and Jake, at the least, did not regret having John. The issue is that my brother has gotten in trouble with the law. Again, I was nominated for guardianship, but I didn't fall for the same trick twice. I stood my ground and burned many bridges in the process. I've been called heartless, selfish, a monster, and more. I've been told that I have a duty to family and so on. My sister Jane, age 25, eventually volunteered, but she can barely support herself, never mind a child. She has asked me for financial assistance and I refused. While money is no problem for me, I have no obligation. I made it clear that I would not be in her village prior to her adopting John, and furthermore, she was one of the relatives that reneged on her promise to help me when I was in her shoes. I don't care what my relatives think, but when I confided in my friend, she told me that I did owe John even if I didn't owe my relatives, because I had agreed to be his guardian. I disagreed because I was tricked into it. Am I the a-hole? Jane should have stuck to her promise to help you, but she didn't. The fact that no one helped you the first time like they promised means they can figure it out this time. I feel awful for John. The hand he has been dealt sucks. Where are your parents in all of this? At least you're not promising to help and then reneging. I feel like I am emotionally cheating on my boyfriend. So my boyfriend, male 21, and I, female 21, have been together for little over a year. Things haven't always been great. We have had our fair share of disagreements, but always managed to meet each other halfway. He is very committed to me, and my boyfriend really wants to take care of me and have a family someday. He is also quite attractive. We both will have great income in a few years because of our education, so starting a family even as early as 25 is very possible. Now here's where my problem began. Recently, I have been into two specific men I know. One of them is over 40, and my relationship is nothing but professional, so, in my mind, it's a crush and nothing I won't forget in a couple of weeks. It's just a harmless crush, probably induced by his talent and confidence. The other guy, I'll call him A, is where I start to worry, even though not in the way you think. This man is almost 40, he is absolutely gorgeous, and I mean sex symbol kind of gorgeous. He is one of those guys who knows how good he looks and how smart he is, so his confidence really shines through. He's also really successful. I've known him for a few years, and about 2 years ago is when I noticed he started flirting with me. I was single back then and hadn't even met my boyfriend yet, so I very subtly flirted back. This happened for just a while until I found out he was married, so I immediately backed off, even though he still continues to flirt, very openly. He gives me those F me eyes when we meet, and somehow always finds a way to start a conversation. I mean, before I knew he was married, the chemistry was there for sure. Now I know this might look bad, but it's not what you think. I would never get involved with married men even if I were single, let alone be in a relationship. I love my boyfriend and I don't ever intend on hurting him, but every time one of these men crosses my mind or flirts with me, I don't flirt back. I can't help but feel guilty. If I hadn't found out he was married 2 years ago, I would probably have gotten involved with him. I see him around quite often, especially these last few months. Even thinking about these things makes me feel like I'm somehow cheating on my boyfriend, like he doesn't deserve this. A is still messing with my head. I just need some solid advice on what might resolve this situation. Cut all contact with the old flirter and end your fascination with him. If he continues to flirt with you, make it clear that it's inappropriate. Remember that he's cheating on his wife by flirting with you, and put yourself in his wife's shoes. Stop flirting and acknowledge your guilt for a reason, especially if you're in a committed relationship. Think about how your actions could hurt your partner and make better choices. Am I the antagonist for saying no to my sister being my only bridesmaid? I, 24 years old female, did not ask my sister, 26 years old female, to be a bridesmaid in my wedding. I decided to have just one bridesmaid, and I asked my best friend, who is more of a sister to me than my actual sister. I never wanted my sister to be a bridesmaid or to have a role as such in my wedding. And I got engaged in 2020 when it was just me and my fiancé living together for the first time, and we had nowhere to go and nothing to do for a few months. So I thought about it a lot, but I couldn't imagine asking her. There are two problems my family have. The first part is my sister is the favorite, and my parents could not imagine me not wanting her to take center stage and become the center of attention at my wedding. My whole life I have heard how beautiful my sister is. She modeled as a kid, and her appearance was always something a spotlight was put on. She was the star of the family and she loved it. She always had a way to drag attention off others to herself. I was seen as the ugly duckling, and my sister had a way of nicely picking on that. If I went out with friends, she would say I should wear makeup to look nice, or she would suggest I should try to make myself look cute. She would say she was really glad nobody thought we looked alike. I started dating my fiancé in high school, and it was one of the few times I was dragged to a party. He approached me and started flirting, and then my sister came over and told him that he deserved the pretty sister. He rejected her, and we ended up leaving together, and we've been together ever since. But she brought it up when he came home with me for Christmas in 2019. She joked that it wasn't too late. But I think she was serious. Despite all this, my parents believe we should be super close and I should adore my sister, The other problem is my sister was diagnosed with cancer 4 months ago. The treatments have ruined her hair, and she has developed some other health complications from treatment. So now everyone feels so bad for her and is gathered around her trying to make her feel as beautiful as ever, and they want her to shine. So my parents feel like I should want to help her out by shining that light on her during the wedding. But I don't want that. I don't want her to steal the show. My parents asked me about Bridesmaids a few weeks ago. I told them I had asked my best friend. Me being dumb, I didn't realize where it was going, and my parents told me to ask my sister and let her be the only bridesmaid. They said my best friend should understand and be happy to step aside. The following day, my sister told me she wanted to be by my side when I get married and how we're sisters and stuff. And she also tried to say she didn't know if she would be here next year, so this would be so special to her. I said no to all three of them. I said she will not be my bridesmaid or my only bridesmaid. Ever since I said no, they have acted like I'm some monster for this, and they have shamed me heavily. It makes me question my saying no. Am I the asshole here? Your wedding should be about you and your fiancé, not your drama-filled family. Stand your ground and don't let them hijack your special day. Your sister being a bridesmaid would only cause unnecessary stress and take away from your celebration. Focus on yourself and your happiness. Don't let them manipulate you. Am I the antagonist for going to a therapist to discuss my difficulties with being pregnant for the first time while a stepmom? I, 30 years old female, got married 4 years ago to James, 32 years old male. James has 2 children with his ex. My stepson is 10 and my stepdaughter is 9. I love my stepchildren and I try to be a good stepmother. Not the crazy evil kind or the kind who wants the kids all to herself and tries to screw over the biological parent. I see my role as being an additional adult in their lives who contributes to their security, but I don't believe I am an equal parent. They don't see me that way, and that is totally fine and lines up with my experiences with friends who had stepparents even from very young ages. I dated James knowing he had children, and I always wanted to be one of the stepparents who the kids were glad to have in their lives, not the ones tolerated for the sake of their parent. My husband's family do not have these same expectations, and during my pregnancy I have struggled with that. To my in-laws, I am an equal parent. I am a third-time parent, and not pregnant for the first time. This has been a difficult expectation for me. I feel like my whole pregnancy has been compared the ex's pregnancies with my stepchildren. Some comments get made by mother-in-law and father-in-law like, oh, the other two weren't that bad because I had such extreme morning sickness that led to a hyperemesis gravidarum. Or when we found out the sex of the baby and it was mentioned we didn't find out with my stepchildren. My husband told them it wasn't like I was involved in either of those pregnancies, but it went over their heads. My sister suggested throwing me a baby shower, and it was mentioned by mother-in-law that you only have a baby shower with your first, and how inappropriate one for the third will be. She said people would judge so harshly for that decision. This has weighed on me. It makes me feel jealous, which is new, and I wallowed for a while in how unfair it is that my husband went through this twice before, and it means his family expect me to give up first-time experiences like a baby shower, or that they compare my pregnancy to his ex's 2 pregnancies. I was worried it would make me a worse stepmother feeling that way, and so I started therapy. My husband and I did talk a little, but he couldn't completely understand how I felt. He told me it wasn't bad to feel a little unsettled by the comments, and he would do better to end them. But I told him I did not want that jealousy to fester and grow, or for it to become resentment toward him or my stepkids. So I started therapy 6 weeks ago. My husband was so frustrated with his family starting all this that a week ago, when they made another comment about the baby shower, he told them it was that shit that sent me to therapy. They asked what that was supposed to mean, and he told them they made me feel like shit for experiencing my first pregnancy, and he was over how they respond to my pregnancy. This started an argument between him, his mom and his brother, and then my husband's family claimed I was weaponizing therapy and overreacting to a situation I signed up for. Am I the asshole? Even if you felt that you were the third parent to your stepkids, this is still a new experience for you. Your husband should be dealing with his parents and owning the issue instead of making you feel bad. Take a little break, reach out to friends and family, and exclude the in-laws from anything baby-related for now. Just focus on enjoying your first pregnancy and baby without their toxic influence. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.